book class. Mr. Rodriguez here, and we're going to kind of just talk a little bit about heroes and villains, which is going to lead us into our last project. I'm doing this video this way so you can see the presentation and have all the time left in class to finish this project. That means we go on Thanksgiving break, we have our remote week. When we return, we're going to be switching classes. So when we return, this project will be due that first day because we won't have any more class. So we're going to talk about pretty much the entire basis of comic book culture, the heroes and villains, because you get a lot of story arcs just between the confrontations between the two. And these confrontations, these stories can last for graphic novels upon graphic novels. Some can stand the test of time that they're always going to be feuding. So the whole basis of the confrontation between your protagonist, which is usually your hero, and your antagonist, which is usually your villain, which you can throw around every once in a while, depending on if you have what's called the anti-hero, like the Punisher or something like that. But it's usually the confrontation between the protagonist and the antagonist, this divide between them that continues to make them feud for forever and ever. So this idea of the protagonist and the antagonist feuding with each other is basically the whole premise of comic book folklore. You have your good guy and your bad guy, and it's not always that. We do have the anti-hero, aka like the Punisher, but your protagonist is 90% of the time the hero in the story, and the antagonist is the villain. So you got to think throughout time, throughout comic book folklore, the heroes and villains. There are some that you can know that are at the right of the top of the pop culture, like Batman and Joker. That is probably one of the best examples of the protagonist-antagonist in comic book culture. Probably one of the best known ones too, because Batman has pretty much gone from, in the comic book realm, broken into pop culture. He's a big blockbuster movie guy. Besides that, you have Superman and Lex Luthor. If we dive over to Marvel, you can have, the X-Men and the Brotherhood of Mutants, Avengers and Thanos. So you have these two conflicting parties that create memorable stories through these series. Another example that I had, I was a DC kid. A lot of people grew up reading Marvel. I grew up reading a lot of DC comics, Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, Flash. Those are pretty much the big prominent ones. So another one that comes to mind is Batman and Bane. And Bane was a supervillain. If you've seen Dark Knight Rises, he's the villain in that one. But the big thing about Bane in the comic book series was he broke Batman's back. And that was a huge thing when I was a kid. But the visual that I can still see it to this day of Bane breaking Batman's back over his leg was like, whoa, this guy can defeat Batman. Being an 8-year-old child, that was mind-blowing to me. I'll even compare it to just like in Avengers, in Infinity War. I mean, the snap, we can all attest to how crazy that visual was of seeing Peter Parker fade away, so the battle between the protagonist and antagonist is what we're going to focus on right here. So we are going to do a grid drawing that depicts a hero and a villain. You can choose any hero and any villain, but it's got to be both of them in the same shot. You can choose an already made photo to work from that has both of them in it, or you can manipulate it however you would like. The only thing that I ask is it needs to fall within this grid drawing format, because we're going to do a grid drawing to help get the exact measurements and the exact portions of it right. Now, if you're not familiar with a grid drawing, I will do a little demo to get you set up, to get you going, and yeah, it's gonna be sweet. We're gonna color these in colored pencil, so it's gonna be nice and thick colors. Again, this will be due when you return from Thanksgiving break after that additional week of remote learning. We won't see each other. We'll have switched electives by then. So you could very well give it to me right before Thanksgiving break, work hard and get it done, or just pop it on my desk as soon as you get back from Thanksgiving break. I'm excited to see these. I think these are gonna be great. Just the way that we've gone so far, I think these are gonna be great. Hello everybody, hello middle schoolers. We are here to discuss some grid drawing here, and what we're going to accomplish with this is the whole point of a grid drawing is basically transferring one picture to another, only bigger. You are going to do it by paying attention to the small detail, piece by piece, and planting it onto another sheet of paper. It sounds complicating, but overall it is really, really, really simple in its method. A couple things you'll need. You are going to need a ruler. You're really, really, really going to need a ruler. Straight lines are very important for the beginning of this. Good pencil, piece of 12 inches by 18 inches piece of white paper. I'm going to first start this off by taking my ruler, and I'm going to measure across my paper. I'm going to measure it by 2 inches. So what I'm going to have at the end of this is 2-inch squares. How I'm going to do this is just like so. I'm going to take my ruler, and right on the edge here, I'm going to mark my 2 inches. So I'm going to go 1 inch, 2 inch, right on the edge. Just make little lines like this right on the edge of my paper. These lines are 2 inches apart at the top of my paper. I'm going to do the same thing down here at the bottom of my paper. So I'm going to take my ruler and go to the bottom of my paper, and I'm going to mark those 2 inches. Okay, so now I have my 2-inch marks right there, my 2-inch marks right there. So now I'm going to go to the long side of the paper, and I'm going to do the same thing I just did with the other. And then I'm going to go, this is kind of important for you to do it this way. I measured it like this right here. I'm going to, instead of flipping it and going this way, I am going to take this and I'm going to just take my ruler down this way. Just in case that you make your measurements off or the ruler's damaged or something like that, which people like to break my rulers. This just assures you that your notches are going to line up, and that's what we want. So there's my 2-inch notches, sweet. And then right up there, my 2-inch notches on my long side. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to match these notches together. So I'm going to go to this first notch right up here, put my ruler right up to it, and I'm going to draw a line straight across matching the notches. Just like that, I have my ruler with that first notch matched up with my second notch right there, almost. There we go. Straight line. And I'm going to do this all the way down my paper. So when it all said is done and I did all my lines, you're gonna have something that looks like this with 2-inch squares. This is what I need with my big paper. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my smaller paper and I'm gonna make 1-inch squares. So now I am going to take this photograph right here that one of my students decided they didn't wanna do. So I'm gonna do this actually. And I'm going to break this down into 1-inch squares doing the same way that I just did this right here. So we're going to hop into fast motion while I do this. All right, so right here, I've broken this up into 1-inch squares, as you can see. This is going to be my final step before I actually start to draw. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna kind of get it set up so you can kind of watch me as I go along this first top line here. So one thing you want to think about is if my photo is kind of landscape style instead of portrait style, I'm going to want to make sure that my picture goes that way too. If your picture is portrait style, which is like the size of this paper, then you might want to switch it that way. So this one's actually landscape style. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to look at this first outline right here, this first square. This square, if far as anything, like there's no real detail right here. Like I'm gonna ignore this black line and pretend this whole thing's just red. There's nothing there. So I am not gonna draw anything in this corner. I'm gonna move to the second one. I'm gonna go over here. Do I see any information there? I do not. So I'm not gonna draw anything in this square. Now I'm gonna go to this one. Do I see any information there? Yes, I do. I see a head just popping out into that corner, going up to the ears of Batman here, all within this one square. I'm not gonna worry about this. I'm not gonna worry about this. I'm not gonna worry about that. I'm gonna worry about this one square right here. Head kind of just pops up right there, not too high. And then we have an ear that goes almost to the top and not all the way, comes back down. And then looks like it comes right back down here. Another ear comes up, not about as big as the other one, comes back down right there. So I've addressed all the information that I see as far as a line. I am not going to address anything below. Anything that I don't see in this square, I'm not going to address. So now I'm going to move to this next one, which would be this square right here. This one right there. I'm going to look at where the information of Joker's hair starts. So, it starts right about the beginning there, just a little. There's a little twirl right there. It comes up, comes out right about there. There is just some black shadow information that I'm going to kind of just draw the shape of, and you'll see why I'm going to do this. Okay, I've addressed to that. Going to this last one here. And I'm going to look, okay, right there, comes up, there. Add some of that black shadow information again. All right, so you can see I've addressed just to the top right there. That's the only thing I addressed, and I'm going to keep going along as I get through each one. I'm going to go a line across, skip, go back, go over this way, skip, go back, go over this way, until I finish drawing my picture. Please do not color yet. Please just stick to pencil, and we will reconvene and look at this on Monday.